Welcome to Australia. I'm down here at the historic Rocks area of Sydney, and behind me is the iconic 1888 wool store. And it's a famous heritage wool store that was used for depositing wool, which has now been converted into a luxury hotel. Now, this area around here in the Rocks is full of these old wool stores, and it's where the precious cargo of wool was actually stored until it was loaded onto the tall ships back at the turn of the century before they sailed off to the old world and the markets of Europe. This is the story of wool. The saying Australia rides on the sheep's back refers to the significant role that the wool industry played in the economic development of Australia, particularly during the late 19th and early 20th centuries. It signifies the importance of sheep and the wool industry as the backbone of Australia's initial prosperity and economic growth during that period.
The aristocrat of the shearing shed is the wool classer, a highly paid expert who sorts for length of staple, texture and strength. He's a key man in maintaining the world reputation of fine Australian wool.
My name is Patty Huntington. You obviously know that, but I'm a Sydney-based fashion journalist. I'm the Features and Fashion News Director for Harper's Bazaar Australia, the Australian correspondent for Women's Wear Daily, and I do a lot of talking about fashion on the ABC, on ABC television and radio, so it's kind of keeps me busy, yeah. Australia was built on the sheep's back. Yeah, look, incredible. I mean, we are this country on the other side of the world, 25 billion people now. I mean, these sheep that came here were originally from Spain, the Merino breed, and then they were hybridized and stuff. But we continue to produce the highest percentage of apparel wool that comes to Australia. I mean, New Zealand also has a lot of sheep, but they tend to produce wool for the home furnishings industry. It's a lot coarser.
We are the country where, we're off the sheep's back, literally. And yeah, wool's an amazing product. It really is.
Hi, I'm Jason Brunsden. I'm a fashion and lifestyle designer. I've been in the business since the early 80s, so it's about 40 years now. I think the Australian wool story is fascinating because it goes way back. It goes back to the 1820s, 1830s, when wool was our biggest industry for a very long time. I used to work with WOOLMARK, and I did a lot of work with them. I just think that it's part of Australia's history. It's intrinsic to the culture.
The story of sheep goes all the way back to the first fleet, as the first 29 fat-tailed sheep were brought into Australia in 1788 with the first fleet. The origin of the phrase, Australia rides on the sheep's back, can be traced back to the mid-1800s, when Australia's economy heavily relied on the production and export of wool. Australia's climate and vast grazing lands were well suited for sheep and farming, and the industry quickly prospered.
A living thing, the sheep, and a living industry, subject to all the perverse whims of nature, against a dead thing from a world of sterile laboratories and man-made climates.
Wool soon became Australia's primary export commodity, and the revenue generated through wool played a pivotal role in the country's economic development. It provided the funds necessary for infrastructure projects, such as railways and ports, and supported the growth of cities and towns. Australia riding on the sheep's back encapsulates the pivotal role that wool exports played in shaping the nation's economy and setting the stage for the emergence of a thriving garment industry. Australia's colonial history, marked by British settlement in the late 18th centuries, led the foundation for the wool industry. The introduction of merino sheep, bred for their wool, revolutionised the Australian agricultural landscape. The harsh Australian climate and the vast expanses of land were ideally suited for sheep farming, leading to the rapid expansion of the industry. The wool industry quickly became an economic backbone of Australia, providing a regular and reliable income stream, fostering the growth of related sectors.
My name is Catherine Veltman and I am the Global Project Manager for the International WOOLMARK Prize at the WOOLMARK Company. Wool has been so ingrained within Australian history. I think it's such an important fibre and commodity for the Australian market. You know, it has such global resonance that it really does provide an opportunity for Australia to stand out on the global market.
The early 19th century witnessed a significant increase in the number of sheep in Australia. And this expansion was fuelled by several factors, including the aforesaid favourable climatic conditions, the availability of vast grazing lands, and the advancements in breeding techniques. John MacArthur, often referred to as the father of the Australian wool industry, played a pivotal role in introducing merino sheep and improving the wool quality through selective breedings.
The merino is the Australian aristocrat, the best of his kind, the backbone of the wool industry.
There's nothing else like wool out there that can be so amazing for the environment and has the most amazing eco-credential. It's sustainable, it's organic, it's natural, and it's biodegradable. And moving forward with the way the world's going, I think we need to start to learn more about buying for longevity and not landfill.
My name's Georgie Wallace and our property here is called Trefusis. I've always had a great passion for merino sheep and their wool. I think wool is such a wonderful, versatile, sustainable and clean green fibre. So I think it has a really bright future.
We're in the spotlight of the world now, so we've got to be putting our best foot forward and seeing that we are doing something positive. We're improving the land for future generations. It is so much better for the environment.
I see that we're custodians of this property. We want to see our native flora and fauna thrive, and I think for the whole biodiversity of this property, it's important to look after that native land. So we want to leave this property in even better order for the next generation.
I'm Alistair Lade. I'm part of a family business that's been producing ultrafine merino for 140 years, and I'm fourth generation and looking forward to the fifth generation taking over. I run 10,000 ultrafine merinos on 1,000 hectares. In this environment up here that we really enjoy living in, we have beautiful clean water, good soils, and with the right amount of sun we can grow high quality nutritious grass. That is ideal for these ultrafine merinos to produce some of the best natural fibre in the world. It's a pleasure going out and seeing these happy, healthy sheep, and they really respond to being looked after.
We're all merino operation for fine wool. We have about 16,500 sheep. I think one of the great things about family businesses and farms in particular is that we don't have to manage for results in 12 months' time or in 6 months' time. We're managing for generations. So the health of the landscape's important to us, not for now, but in 30 or 60 or 100 years' time.
Hopefully we're moving into a society that is less throwaway. Wool lends itself perfectly into that. It's definitely not a product that you have for one season and discard at the end of that. It's an annual product that's grown naturally on a sheep's back.
The availability of a reliable and abundant material encouraged the establishment of textile mills and garment manufacturing facilities within Australia. And this in turn created employment opportunities, stimulated local economies, and fostered technological advancements in the garment production process.
Sure, I'm John Roberts. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of Australian Wool Innovation and the Managing Director of its subsidiary company, the WOOLMARK company. I stem from a wool growing family in the Southern Highlands in New South Wales, but I actually grew up in the city, so I won't pretend to be a country boy, but I certainly, it's always been part of my history and I think it's in my blood a bit to be part of the wool industry, yeah. A month in my diary is, it's quite diverse. I got everything from standing in a paddock with wool growers talking about fly strike or worm prevention to the other end of the supply chain of the International WOOLMARK Prize in Paris, for example. So, and everything else in between. It's a privilege to do the job. Riding on the sheep's back is, I think people of my generation and older, grew up listening to that phrase, and it was true. I think when the wool industry started in Australia, once it really started to hit its straps, and we got to 170 million sheep in Australia. It was the economy was very much dependent upon the scale of the Australian wool industry, and certainly through two wars and the Korean War as well. I think wool was a key part of a key export. And it was a huge form of revenue for Australia. So I think a lot of that's probably lost on subsequent generations. That said, it's still a hugely significant industry for Australia. Today, wool still accounts for about $3.5 to $4 billion in exports for Australia, for the Australian economy. It's a lot less than it used to be in terms of volumes, but the prices have actually come up quite a lot. So in terms of dollars, it's still quite a significant export.
I think the wool industry in Australia is one that a lot of people don't realise how important it is. The significance of the amount of wool that we export to Europe and to China, the amount of business that we do with, all of those Italian fabric mills, and for any guy or girl who's bought a suit and has flicked through, all of those beautiful fabric swatches, and we all want an Italian fabric. In fact, most of that's made from Australian wool. It's an extraordinary business, and I think that more power to the growers, and I hope that, as time goes forward, they get a larger piece of the pie, because otherwise it's not sustainable.
I think what's so amazing about the wool business and the wool fibre, it's a miracle fibre. It comes from sunshine, grass and rain, and these incredible animals produce this beautiful fibre, which is so versatile. I mean, this fibre, it has the most perfect drape, the most beautiful silhouettes, the most perfect handle. It's technical, it's functional, it has moisture management, odour management, shape retention, and all these things that people try to replicate it in the laboratory and they simply can't. So I think that's the miracle of the fibre, plus the fact that it is also now one of the most sustainable fibres on the planet, which I think we've probably not spoken enough about in the past.
So the thing about wool that is so amazing is just its diversity. Everyone can find a connection with wool, but the way you use wool can be interpreted in so many different ways. Whether you're looking at it from a traditional sense in terms of tailoring and knitwear, but then you've got a lot of designers coming and looking at wool from a new perspective, from performance, and really tapping into those qualities that make it stand out. And then you also have all of its natural benefits. The fact that wool is natural, renewable, biodegradable. It's the most recycled apparel fibre in the world. Just lends itself so nicely to the way the industry is going. People want to find those alternatives that are going to be gentler on the environment, and we'll definitely provide that.
The development of transportation infrastructure, such as railways and ports, further facilitated the growth of the wool industry. And this allowed for the efficient transportation of wool from remote rural areas to urban centres, both within Australia and international export. Additionally, the establishment of wool auctions provided a platform for buyers and sellers to negotiate prices, ensuring fair trade practices and enhancing market transparency. Australia's abundant wool supply soon captured the attention of the international garment industry. The superior quality of Australian wool, particularly our merino wool, made it a highly sought-after textile for manufacturers worldwide. The fine texture, the strength, the natural insulation properties of Australian wool made it an ideal material for producing high-quality garments by the textile mills in Europe. As the demand for Australian wool increased, so did the export volumes. Wool shipments were primarily destined for the textile manufacturing hubs in Europe, particularly in Britain, where the Industrial Revolution was in full swing. The Australian wool industry played a crucial role in providing a reliable and sustainable source of raw material to support the growing textile industry, contributing to significantly the economic development of both Australia and the importing nations. The export of wool provided Australia with valuable foreign exchange earnings, enabling the country to import machinery, technology, and other goods for industrialisation. And this economic growth, driven by the wool industry, laid the foundation for the emergence of a domestic garment manufacturing sector in Australia. The Australian garment industry emerged as a normal progression from the wool industry. Initially, the focus was on producing woolen garments, such as sweaters and blankets and coats, capitalising on the unique properties of Australian wool. Furthermore, the wool industry's impact extended beyond economic factors. It shaped Australia's identity and cultural heritage. The image of the rugged Australian sheep stations and the iconic Australian stockman became synonymous with the country's national identity and character. The wool industry became ingrained into the image of the nation's psyche, just like the American cowboy, serving as a symbol of resilience, hard work, and resourcefulness.
The cowboy can come from anywhere.
And we have this wonderful, heritage with the wool. It's now called, the International WOOLMARK Prize, but it was originally the Wool Secretariat Board E. Several and Karl Lagerfeld one, and I think it's 1954. So, it's an incredible story, and we have this connection to the fashion industry via this amazing fibre.
I've been involved with WOOLMARK, I guess, probably through my whole career somewhere or another. What I love about fashion is the craft. It's not necessarily just, a look or a show. That's motivating as well to get a look and sort of realise it, but it's the craftsmanship of actually being able to drape a piece of fabric, work with beautiful quality fabrics and come up with a story. I was on the South Australian Wool Board for many years, which I learnt a lot about, from the farmer to the shop, I guess, that whole process. So, and then worked a bit with the CSIRO and trying to develop fabrics, silk and woolen fabrics, things that were, probably a little bit different to what was on the market or what available, but there's so much more now that is available, so it's exciting. There's so much more technology and development. I used a lot of merino wool in my last collection in Paris, and I mixed it with a lot of lace because I love the idea of, even with what I do now, mixing different textures and fabrics together. And also, you know, using a lot of pleating and silk doesn't pleat, whereas wool does. So it's quite interesting to experiment with different fabrics together because you get very different effects then when you wash things afterwards. And so the last collection was not necessarily intentional just to use wool, it was because it was a great fabric to use. With what I do, I'm a luxury company that uses very good quality fabric, so if I choose to work with wool, it's going to be a good quality fabric, and it's natural and it breathes and it does so many more things than man-made fibres could do.
I think the wool industry in Australia, I mean, it's like New Zealand. It's incredibly important to both, you know, countries. But it's something that I see now. The Wool Board has definitely taken a different direction in its marketing, and they have international competitions of which Australia is very strong and supports. And it's very important for the industry, and it's very important because they're actually bringing younger designers to the forefront in an international way rather than a local kind of, you know, farmers marketing way. I hate to say that, but it's very international now, and I think, you know, has a great group of people across judging the different fashion categories. But apart from that, for me, it's sort of, I would like to see a lot more of the wool finished in Australia, so it's sorted and combed and spun here rather than often it's sent overseas, whether it's to Italy or China, to be finished and then sent back here as fabric. But, you know, it's a very strong industry here, and I think it's something that we all need to support and recognise, particularly through droughts. The farmers, you know, they lose a lot of stock, and it's something that needs addressing.
Australian wool has always been a really important story in context for not just the industry but Australian Fashion Week. It's one of our competitive advantages. You know, the fine micron merino wool that Australia produces is one of the best raw materials for fashion to be found anywhere in the world. And the ultimate is Australian designers using their own raw materials as a competitive advantage and taking that to the world. We wanted to encourage as much as possible for Australian designers to focus on wool. So we had a very close association with the Australian WOOLMARK company. They became the sponsor of the event in the early days and were very supportive. And our work together was encouraging more and more Australian designers to embrace the opportunity with wool and the innovation that was being developed to be used in different sort of knitted and fibres. So everyone from Dion Lee to Carla Zampatti to everyone, Sass and Bide, really got involved in working with the wool program, which was fantastic. And this has become a global phenomenon now. I mean, it was initially launched back in, I think, the early 60s when Karl Lagerfeld, in fact, won the International WOOLMARK Prize. And then it was reinvented by the WOOLMARK company a number of years later. We got heavily involved in helping to establish that in Australia and various parts around the world. And myself and my wife, Kirsten, were involved in judging that for many years. And as a continuation of the story of wool, and that is to be able to influence designers to use what is the most sustainable, the most beautiful resource in the world to use. So the ultimate is Australian designers using Australian wool, and Australian Fashion Week always had a role in promoting that association.
The ultimate goal of the prize is to educate these designers on the benefits of using wool, provide them with the resources they need to integrate it into their business models, and then ultimately have them as lifelong wool advocates so that they can really embed it into their business models and show consumers how amazing it is.
The WOOLMARK Prize is just a critical focal point for the power and the irresistibility of wool.
The importance of this prize is unrivaled. One that focuses on craft, on individual nations and currencies and geographic locations, and seeing how they can implement that within their own work.
extraordinary innovation that took place with wool, of subverting everything we think we know about this fabric and making it incredibly modern, ethical, conscious. I thought it was a really intelligent group of designers.
Yeah, look, the WOOLMARK Prize is probably our crown jewel in terms of some of the marketing campaigns we do. And it's the crown jewel because it's not just about marketing, but it's also about developing an alumni of people who learn to love wool and talk about wool for the rest of their career. We think that the WOOLMARK Prize is still very highly regarded. It's still one of the most prestigious fashion awards, we believe, in the world. As it's evolved over the years, it hasn't just been a fashion award, but we have a sustainability component to it and an innovation component to it. So it's something that we want to keep pushing and driving.
The WOOLMARK Prize for me is a sign of excellence. What I'm loving really this year is the use of wool mixed with sustainability.
Natural fibres need to be so considered as part of our wardrobes, as part of the process and the way in which we work in fashion. I think the designers who are part of the WOOLMARK Prize have solutions.
When you talk to the designers here today, they're all alive to possibilities that I don't think people were even considering 5 years ago.
I mean, wool is the most sustainable material, and they are using it in an exquisite and very innovative manner.
なので、こういった形で審査員、本当に世界中から集められて、でそういう人たちから何か賞を提供されるっていうのは自信につながって、そのアーティストクリエイターの次のステップを登っていけるすごく力強い後押しになると思うんで。
This generation of young designers and establishing designers are the future of fashion.
The WOOLMARK Prize is regarded as a hugely prestigious event. I mean, we're lucky enough. We get a judging panel who come in every year. We get the likes of Tim Blanks. They come and do this out of the goodness of their heart. And a lot of the time, they're not charging us to come here. They actually want to be here to actually judge these things. We've had Victoria Beckham judge in the past as well. And they do this because they want to see good young talent evolve, and also they want to push for sustainable fibres. So it's something that we're really proud of and want to continue to push.
The program is so unique in that it's opened up to emerging designers across the globe. And then once they're onboarded as a finalist, they receive 60,000 AUD, and then they enter what we call the Innovation Academy, which is our education and mentorship program, where they are given the tools and the resources and the mentorship to develop a 6-look merino wool collection. And then that's kind of their beginning of their journey with wool often. And it's really amazing to see how they embrace that, embed it within their, their company and their ethos, and then continue on later after the prize.
I'm Saul Nash, and I'm a menswear designer in London. And today we're here at Somerset House at my studio. This is my messy desk. This is where I sit. And up on the wall, we have every collection that we've made to date. I do that so we always have a reference to go through, so we can see the journey that we're going on as a brand. In my masters, I'd explored knitwear, and I'd always been keen to bring knitwear back into my work, but I couldn't find the right partners to do it with. And I had visited the WOOLMARK company many years prior, just to explore a bit about what they do. And I was really intrigued because on that visit, I discovered that wool could be used in so many other ways than your traditional knitted sweater or your traditional wool coat. I think that's what was really exciting with the WOOLMARK Prize, is that you think of things holistically, particularly around the discussion of sustainability. I think the WOOLMARK Prize came at an essential time, particularly in my brand, because it was something that I was always questioning or exploring. So when you look at wool as a renewable material, and then also the fact that it's biodegradable if it's used in certain ways, I think it's embedded parts of my work that I can't ever see leaving again. It did start from that place of, how do I design something that I want to wear all the time, but I was comfortable moving in. This idea that the garment should feel like air, this kind of understanding of movement, it's informed like the fabric choices. And then also, I guess, the technical aspects of the garment. So a few of these are the first kind of iteration stemming back from the WOOLMARK prize. This set is made out of 100% merino wool, and I developed it with Knitwear Lab. What I really love about it is that it integrates plain knit with mesh. And what's nice is when you wear it without a jacket, you feel the ventilation throughout the body, but then when you put a jacket on, it warms you up. Using wool, it's a lot more positive than using 100% synthetic fibre. For me, it was a step towards a better use of materials within my design process. What I loved with this garment is you have double-faced jacquard, but then you have single jersey integrated within it. So when you wear it on the body, it moves really well. So these are kind of iteration stemming from what I'd created when I won the WOOLMARK prize. But what I really love about this actually is it's a step towards creating something which is 100% performance driven or for active wear. Even the way the garment's constructed, it's built to resist. It can be worn on different bodies because it's made quite small and it stretches to the different body types.
Look, I think the WOOLMARK prize in the future, I think it'll always have the element of fashion, obviously, but I think it'll be about sustainable fashion. We spoke earlier about how fashion is the #1 priority these days, and I think given how sustainable wool is, I think there's always going to be that element of sustainability, whether that be natural dyes or just talking about the virtues of wool more broadly. But also, I think there's a functionality component. We've often talked about wool as a luxury fibre, but we don't often talk about wool as a technical fibre, and it's highly technical. So we're certainly pushing for that with our designers as they come through.
So the finalists over the years have been so diverse. So obviously starting back in the 1950s with Karl Lagerfeld, Yves Saint Laurent. Since then we've had the likes of Edward Crutchley, who won. He was actually the first finalist ever to have a double win. He won the menswear and the Innovation Award back in 2019. And then he went on to work at Dior following that. We had Gabriella Hearst win the women's wear category a few years ago and then went on to work at Chloe. We've had more recently Sol Nash, who is one of a UK performance wear designer. And I mean, he's doing the most incredible things. We actually just launched a ski-inspired athleisure wear collection with him. We've had the likes of Colavos from the US. We've had Christopher Bevins from the US. He was the first person to win the Innovation Award. We've had Bodice from India, who was absolutely incredible. Rahul Mishra, who won in 2014. And, you know, I think he's one of the most incredible winners we've ever had. He so consistently uses wool and pushes the boundaries of wool, collection to collection, that he's such an incredible alumni member to have.
The winner is Rahul Mishra.
I must have pitched myself more than 100 times so far. I'm still sinking in the feeling. I'm still feeling as I'm dreaming. It has been one of the biggest dreams I ever had in my life. It's going to create such a huge motivation within a country of millions that you believe in your own roots and think about universe. Like, look really far in past and create something for the future.
It makes me so much emotional right now when I'm here actually touching it, feeling how it is produced, and I've worked with this fiber such a long time, and very honestly this fiber has kind of given me so much. I'm able to express myself really well when I work with wool, with merino especially. The entire inspiration of this collection also started with this story of wool or story of merino, and how something which is so sustainable starts from farm, goes to highest in fashion. Like, this is what kind of amazes me when I see something which is being produced on a farm level, on such a green platform, goes to probably Manhattan in New York, most artificial city humans have ever built. Because of the incredible source, that entire field is maintained. That's what I'm saying, this fiber has got a life of its own, and that life is still exists. So this is where we started weaving it in one of the weaving villages in India. Again, this is also kind of sustainable model. Then we have got group of weavers who weave with hand. Like this guy who has woven it, he has been weaving it for more than 10 generations, have gone into weaving the fabric. And this is more than 90% merino wool. This is what is an amazing technique. Like he would literally lift every yarn and insert this extra weft, which is here. This makes it amazing. Created this embroidery, again with 100% merino wool yarn. But embroidery never felt so soft, ever. Like this really feels amazingly soft. It's like couture which can be like worn every day, which feels soft, which has got such a great feeling. I think we could have not got it with any other fiber, any other fabric, any other thread. This kind of feeling.
Yes, we've had a few Australians in the mix. So from an Australian perspective, our finalists have included Dion Lee, Albus Lumen, Christopher Esba, McGraw, Bianca Spender. Most recently, we had Jordan Duller a few years ago as a finalist. So there's definitely been some strong Australian finalists in the mix. The last International WOOLMARK Prize final was in Paris, so we took it back to its roots. It first started in Paris in the 1950s, so it was very exciting to go back there in May 2023. We held it at Le Petit Palais, excuse my French, but it was an absolutely incredible venue, really historical, incredibly just aesthetically beautiful. So to have that as a backdrop of showing innovation and the modernity of wool was a really cool contrast. Our most recent winner was Lagos Space Program from Nigeria, who won the International WOOLMARK Prize, and then Aroga Ho from Copenhagen won our Karl Lagerfeld Award for Innovation. You know, I always find it really interesting to see how the winners and the finalists reflect what's happening in the world, and I think with this most recent batch of finalists, you really saw that post-COVID casualization trend come through. They were very much designing for versatility and for looks and garments that a consumer can mix and match and use in their everyday life, and then, you know, for more special occasions as well. So Lagos Space Program was very much focused on incredible tailoring and shirting, amazing Nigerian heritage and the different dye techniques that their culture uses, which it was just beautiful to see. And then Aroga Hove, on the other hand, was very focused on knitwear and pushing the boundaries of knitwear within her current business model. So she worked with a lot of our trade partners to reinvent how you approach knitwear within a collection. I think, you know, the International WOOLMARK Prize has been running for so many years now, and I think one of the most important elements of it is the industry support that we receive. You know, we have worked with the most incredible industry members to support the designers, but also wool and the wool industry. You know, these judges that come on board every year, whether that be Tim Blanks from Business of Fashion, Corinne Whitefield from CR Fashion Book, Edward Enenfil, who is with Vogue, these amazing figureheads who come on often free of charge. They're offering their time and their wisdom to the prize and to the designers to really amplify wool on a global scale. And I think their passion for wool is what makes it so amazing. You know, we've got all these people coming together from different disciplines within the industry, but they all believe in wool, which is a really amazing thing to see.
Well, the International WOOLMARK Prize is something that goes way back.
The brands that we've worked with over the years, such as Vivienne Westwood, you know, Victoria Beckham.
I think that WOOLMARK are doing a wonderful thing, supporting young designers, and not just from Britain or Europe. You know, this is the whole world. We have people from Australia, China, Japan, and that's great to treat the world as one.
Donatella Versace, all of these designers they believe in wool as well, and they work with wool in their own capacity. So when they then come on board to support the prize, it's such a natural fit, and they're incredible ambassadors to have for the fibre.
In Australia, wool has played a significant role in the British and Italian garment industries, particularly with Italian luxury companies like Zegna. And the Zegna brand were not just content to champion Australian wool. The Zegna family were committed, so committed, that they actually bought a majority stake in an Australian wool farm. The actual farm in Australia's New South Wales might not be where you'd expect to find an Italian count or a luxury Italian brand, but this 2,500 hectare property is exactly where Emilio Zegna wanted to be. And in 2014, the luxury fashion house bought a 60% share in this family-run farm. For the company, then chairman, third-generation member Paolo, it was a good opportunity to work closely with wool growers to develop the right fibres for his garments. Convincing farmer Charlie Coventry and his family to sell them a stake was a challenge. But in the end, both sides did find common ground in both being family businesses. We certainly have a sense of family commitment, seriousness, and how well you can do your job, whatever your job is. I think there's a lot of commonalities between us, Paolo Zegna said. And for Emilio Zegna, the purchase completed the cycle of full integration, widely referred to internally as a business that goes from sheep to shop. And in Australia's digital age, however, that endpoint is also way much more on the screen. So it's important to connect to a new generation of digital savvy customers.
The idea was that the fabrication, sort of the fabric itself, was made in Italy. That is how it all started. It all started with great fabrics. The idea was to take away that business that Great Britain had had forever on having the highest quality fabrications in the world. It just goes to show how much they care, and that care came way back when they first started creating fabrics, and the details that were put into small mini books describing every little particle and detail within the fabrication that created what you see today. The Zegna family has always been innovative. In 1963, they decided to collaborate with farmers and create the Zegna Trophy. This giving the opportunity for a farmer to win a prize, but also create something that is probably better than something that's ever been created, and share that information with all other farmers. And since then, Zegna has given away many trophies to different farmers, one being Australia, where they have the Golden Fleece, which is like the paramount of sheep's wool, creating one of the finest merino wools in the world. Over the decades, they've come all the way to the Centennial Award, which has created something that was a little bit bigger than 11 micron thick wool, which is surreal. And they've only been able to create, I think, 200 meters of that wool. So this is something that Zegna has done to be not only the best merchant, retailer, and supplier of suits, but somebody who can create the best fabric still in the world.
Italian mills have long been recognised for their expertise in textile production and garment manufacturing. The use of premium materials is a critical factor in their ability to create high-quality fabrics. And Australian fine wool, renowned for its exceptional quality, has been highly sought after by Italian mills for many decades. Italian mills, including those associated with prestige brands like Zegna, have long established partnerships with Australian wool producers. And these collaborations ensured a consistent supply of high-quality wool, which formed the foundation of these luxurious fabrics produced in these famed Italian mills. The unique characteristics of the Australian wool, such as its softness, its durability, its versatility, made it an ideal material for the creation of elegant and refined garments.
I mean, the Italians love Australian wool, which is great because we know Italians like the finer things in life. You know, they are always looking for the most premium option, whether it's clothing, apparel and fibres, or it's what they eat or what they drink, as we were saying before. So I think the fact that they discovered Australian merino wool so many years ago and have embedded it within their industry really shows that it is one of the best fibres on the planet. They adopted it so long ago from a very traditional sense within their tailoring and their knitwear, and you can see that through a lot of our partners, as you said, Xenia or Benetton. You know, they're long-standing partners of the WOOLMARK company, and they continue to use wool season on season just because it's unbeatable. They love the qualities that it provides, and their consumers love it too.
Xenia, in particular, has a long-standing history of sourcing wool directly from Australia, and the company's commitment to quality and craftsmanship has made it a leading player in the luxury menswear market. Xenia's use of Australian fine wool has contributed to its reputation for producing exquisite fabrics that exemplify both style and comfort. The influence of Australian fine wool in the Italian mills goes beyond the material itself. Australian wool producers have collaborated with these Italian mills to develop innovative techniques and processes that enhance the performance and aesthetics and appeal of the fabrics. And these collaborations have led to advancements in fabric finishes, in dyeing methods, and blending techniques, further elevating the quality and versatility of Australian fine wool.
The Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli team, we started partnering with them, oh gosh, we're in our second phase now, so probably about 5-6 years ago. And they were looking for a partner who could help them develop technical wear that would still align with their focus on sustainability. So we worked with them on developing a collection that would provide the performance benefits they needed. So obviously their sailors are training both on and off the water, so making sure that they've got gear that allows them to move freely, that regulates their temperature, wicks moisture, provides them with really that soft next to skin feel. And we created a full kit with them. So you've got their training kit, so more of your gym wear, and then you've also got the kit that they wear on the water as well.
The attraction for Prada, for wool, I think has evolved over time. I mean, previously it was all about what we stood for in terms of quality, in terms of a luxurious, glamorous, perfectly good fibre with beautiful drape. Now, the attraction for someone like Prada is our sustainable characteristics and our eco-credentials. And I think that's what a lot of people are now changing the way they want to engage with the WOOLMARK company. Yes, all the good stuff that we're known for in terms of quality is still a priority for them, but the added bonus now is they recognise us as a sustainability partner, and we're finding that more and more as people gravitate back towards natural fibres. So it's a very special time for the wool industry right now. We've been lucky enough to work really closely with Prada in the last little while, and Lorenzo Bertelli has been a really great supporter of the fibre. The first thing we did was work with the Prada Luna Rossa America's Cup sailing team. It's been an incredible journey. They are mad about sailing, and obviously sailing has a global audience that's vast. They were looking for a sustainability partner to come up with something that was more appealing to and functional for their sailors, but also something where they could illustrate their morphing to a more sustainable brand. So we worked with the Prada team to come up with some technical outfits to wear it, not just for outer shell, for water repellent, base layer for working out and doing the grinders and everything else that these sailors do, and we put all those products through to the test. We outfitted them all. They became huge advocates for those outfits. One, because they don't put microplastics into the ocean, which they adore, and two, because they really love the functionality of it. And then after that, from there, we've been lucky enough to do a capsule collection with Prada as they look to sort of move towards a more sustainable image, and we're lucky enough that they're working with us to be that partner.
But it isn't just the Italians who have a thing for the romance and power of Australian wool. It turns out all the major international fashion houses, the big ones, and their designers, all pretty much worship Australian wool as something being natural and divine. And this fascination is shared by many artists and designers around the world who romance both the wool and also the Australian outback farms where it comes from. Japanese fashion label Facetasm is deeply rooted in Tokyo's edgy street culture. Journeying to Australia, founder-designer Hiromichi Okai visited a merino wool-growing facility to mark the beginning of a 2-year season and partnership with the WOOLMARK company.
広大で視野が広いというか、空間が広いというか、ちょっと抜けてる感覚で、やっぱりちょっとレベルが違う。僕は見たことなかったですね。あそこまで壮大な感じの自然というもの。
Look, Japan's a wonderful market. Obviously, you know that it's a leading fashion market. And there's always good evolving designers coming through. We've been lucky enough to work with a group called Facetasm. And the young designer there, he came out a couple of years ago now, and we did a lovely capsule collection with him, beautiful collection. And part of that was him coming out and doing some videography on Australian farms, looking at shearing, touching sheep. And it was a beautiful piece of videography, which he was emotionally very moved by that whole product. And I think the wool growers who he came and saw were one, just appreciative that someone had come and taken an interest in their fibre and where it had come from. So it was a lovely meeting of two, extreme ends of the supply chain.
感じたことのない自然だったなっていうのは本当に実感しましたね。感じれてよかったです。やはり最初牧場の方に行かせていただいて。
Look, when designers like Facetasm come out to Australia, I think first of all, I think they're overwhelmed by the hospitality and the warmth, particularly in the bush, in the regional areas. And the thing that probably really strikes them is the vastness of it, the open spaces, and almost the lawlessness of it. I think for them is a bit overwhelming. So I think that it takes them a few days to come to terms with that, and then to actually see the animals, which you're not going to see an animal in Roppongi. That's a big thing in itself. So to see not just one animal, but possibly 30,000 of them, all being cared for and in a free-range environment is a really beautiful thing for them, a really powerful thing for them. We love having some of our brand partners come to Australia. We're really proud of what Australian farmers do, and when we have some of these brand partners who come out who you might think probably don't have a huge interest in Australian wool, when they come out and they see it, they see the sheep, they see the passion, they see the way we look after the land and look after the animals. I mean, it's a very emotional experience for a lot of those brands, whether it be new up-and-coming designers from Japan or established brands like Prada or Benetton or Palo Zegna, who's often out here working with the WOOLMARK company.
the WOOLMARK company, but the WOOLMARK Prize specifically provides the opportunity to have conversations with some of the biggest designers in the world. So it really is a platform to integrate ourselves into the industry and make sure that we're providing the industry, whether it be emerging or established designers, with access to wool so that they can use what we believe is the best fibre in the world.
People wear those garments because they were a price point, and I think after the war, you know, the growth of synthetic fibres and acrylic fibres was seen as a real progression, and you could argue it was, without possibly realising some of the more damaging outcomes from those fibres longer term. So I think people, you know, bought them with the right reason, for the right intent. Look, I think petroleum-based fibres and man-made cellulosic fibres, you know, they have great functionality, and as I mentioned, you know, they fit a good price point. I think the problem they have is that they don't biodegrade. They stay into landfill into perpetuity, contribute to global warming. Process with man-made fibres is, in terms of the lifetime of the garment, you tend to, it's a cheap price point, so it's often just used and then sold, and then another one is bought, so it sort of adds to this, you know, vast consumerism that seems to be happening. So look, a lot of those garments they need to be washed a lot. Their odour management's not there. There's a lot of components to them that are what we would say is not sustainable. They also shed microplastics into the ocean, which is a growing concern. So then we all end up eating those microplastics and ingest those things. So I think there's a bit of a reckoning happening in terms of consumer priorities, and consumers are becoming label turners in a lot of respects. So it's making it a bit more difficult for those fibres.
There is a huge increase in synthetics in the market at the moment, and you know, one of our key roles is to help educate designers on why they should be choosing natural fibres, and more specifically wool. You know, synthetics have incredible qualities, but the fact is that they often don't last as long. When you compare synthetic fibres, for example, to a natural fibre such as wool, you really need to think about the qualities of the fabric and the garment itself. You know, wool has a longer lifetime. It is, as I said earlier, the most recycled apparel fibre on the world, meaning that the cost per wear is lower. So it's all about that buying less, buying better, and investing in quality, as opposed to, you know, if you're looking at a garment that's perhaps made of a synthetic fibre, it's cheaper, which meaning it won't last as long. You're going to have to, for example, throw it out after a season or two, and it's not going to have that longevity within your wardrobe.
Wool has been very important to Australia because, obviously, from a financial point of view, and yes, it's a huge industry and it's a very long-term industry, but it's also, we export some of the best wool in the world to get made into some of the best fabrics in the world, and then we purchase them back. So it seems ludicrous to me that that's the situation we're in, but we are, and Australian wool is known because it's fine, so it can be made into beautiful suiting and fabrics, but it isn't done here. So for us, you know, it's the ability to support Australian as much as we can. So we buy Australian wool and use the WOOLMARK emblem when we can. But I feel as though it's an industry that absolutely needs to be supported.
So my name is Leila Naja Hipri, and I'm the CEO of the Australian Fashion Council. I grew up in Beirut in Lebanon, and I came to Australia in 1990 to study economics and accounting, or to continue studying economics and accounting at Sydney University. And I've been here more or less since then, so for over 30 years. It's, I think, a ridiculous paradox that we are one of the biggest producers of fibre, wool and cotton, the most beautiful fibre, natural fibre in the world, yet we export it for spinning and ginning and all the add value processes. That's not even to talk about the textile manufacturing and the making of clothing. So one of the AFC's pillars is to actually look at how can we, I use the word right-shoring, it's a common word in the transformational side of fashion and fashion industry. And what that means is what can we bring back to Australia that we can compete on? And we can't compete when it comes to labor because we don't want to compete with that because, as you know, there are countries that are really they're paying pittance to laborers. But what we can compete on is innovation and technology. And so that's an area that if we actually incorporate innovation technology into our system, whether it is, in the case of value adding to raw materials or actually, making textiles and making clothing, then we have a real chance. But I don't know if you know this, that one of the main reasons we don't spin, for example, cotton here or wool is not labor, it's actually the cost of energy. So Australia, one of the most natural energy kind of rich countries in the world, like using that energy is too expensive for local manufacturing. So we send it overseas to make it overseas. It's crazy.
Look, in my dreams, the ideal wool story by 2030 is that Australian wool growers are recognised for all the good work they do. The fibre itself is recognised as the most natural, sustainable, biodegradable, circular fibre that it is. And the consumer priorities are very much centred towards that fibre. I think that's really important for us, and I think it's important for the planet. Look, I'd love the viewers of this program to sort of have an appreciation for wool and also natural fibres more broadly. I'd like consumers to think more about what they're buying, what they're putting on their bodies. Turn the label, have a look what's going into your product, and think beyond price and think and look and think about its impact and also how long it might last. And I think that's I think it's a really important thing in the future to be a much more mindful consumer.